name is Kathleen Wood, and I am the founder of the award-winning innovative growth strategy firm, Kathleen Wood Partners, and the founder of Founderology Growth Summit. The Growth Summit is a founder-led event specifically to help founders accelerate, expand, and grow themselves, their teams, and their businesses. And if you're not familiar with me, you're going to get to know me over these podcasts with Founderology Built to Break Through as I chat with innovators, trailblazers, and founders who are building concepts and brands to really break through. But today, I am thrilled to introduce Erin Wade, the founder of Homeroom Mac and Cheese, the author of the best-selling book, The Mac and Cheese Millionaire, and the leading expert of mac and cheese in the world. So, Erin, welcome to Founderology.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. You know, Erin, I had the pleasure to consult with you and your team as you were growing Homeroom, and it was an amazing experience and also very delicious at the same time. And I'm sure I could share a lot of stories, but I think our listeners would be more interested in hearing your origin story. So can you share a little bit with us about how you founded Homeroom, but also becoming the global expert in mac and cheese too?
Yeah, well, I was working as a very unhappy lawyer, but previous to that had worked in restaurants and just found it to be very dead end. Like I just didn't see a future for myself in the industry. So, as many people who are unhappy in their work, I wasn't good at being a lawyer, and I actually got fired, and it was a real wake up call where I was like, what am I doing here? I had this dream of opening a restaurant for a long time, and I sort of wondered if I did my own restaurant, maybe I could make it the kind of place I wish I could have worked but had never experienced. So I took this recipe I had from my dad growing up, which I thought was the best mac and cheese I'd ever tasted in my life. And I saw this sort of hole in the market, which was there was no restaurants dedicated to mac and cheese, even though it's such a popular and classic American dish. There's pizza places, burger places, ice cream places, but there wasn't a mac and cheese restaurant. So this sort of combo of wanting to create a place that I really loved working, and there other people would too, as well as this like family recipe, all converged in Homeroom. And it was much more popular than I ever could have dreamt or imagined. And here we are today.
Absolutely. So, Erin, when you were building Homeroom, doing something that no one had ever done before, in a space where no one had ever played before, did you have one of those kind of like aha moments where you're like, oh, holy, this is going to work?
Yeah, we got really lucky. I mean, I think my aha moment with the concept was actually one night coming home, and I live in Oakland, California, which is a pretty major city. And there was just no restaurant. I had a craving for mac and cheese, and there was no place I could go to get it. And that just seemed crazy to me. So I had to, go buy all the ingredients and make it. And literally as I was eating it that night on my couch, I think I was like, oh my God, if this was available to other people, I think it would just, people would go crazy for it. And I mean, it was true literally from the first, we did, while building the restaurant, did a lot of mobile events to try to build an audience. And to be honest, it was, from the first event we ever held, just like lines like down the street of people excited to try it.
Wow. So your breakthrough moment actually was the real aha that I should open a restaurant for this.
I think so. Like, I think, I love restaurants. I'm obsessed. I was joking, like I was just in New York, and I ate in like 8 restaurants in a day. Like, I just obsessed. So I think it's just rare when you like are really into something and see something that seems so obvious that no one's doing. I think that was really my aha. And I didn't personally have a lot of doubt that wouldn't catch on, because I was like, oh, I would love this. So I imagine that so many other people would too. But to be honest, not a lot of people agreed with me. So it was hard to retain that confidence in myself, if I, honestly.
Right. Well, personally having experienced Homeroom several times, I could tell you that I know why you had the lines, and I know why people loved it, because it is fantastic.
Oh,
I'm also thinking though, while you're getting Homeroom open, and you've got the 1 location, 2 locations, and the popularity of it and the lines down the street, was there that moment where you were like, now that we've got this open, this thing is going to break through, and we're going to establish ourselves as the standard for mac and cheese? But even more than that, the other thing you're trying to do is establish a standard for a new way of doing business. So when do all those lights kind of click on?
Yeah, so I mean, I did, recently my book came out, The Mac and Cheese Millionaire, and it really is the story of like my 10-year odyssey in trying to honestly create a workplace that matched the vision of what I thought, a place could be. And the truth is there just wasn't a lot to look up to, right? I didn't have a lot of examples. I'd certainly never worked any place that was like. So the story, I mean, honestly, it's not a classic business book. It is pretty funny and ridiculous, and I poke fun at myself quite a lot. But just, that I had this vision of what it would, like what I thought it meant to be a great place to work. But honestly, when I would try to like execute on what I thought that might mean, a lot of times it was a disaster. It was really hard. So while I feel like we nailed the mac and cheese out of the gate, which was sort of necessary, like that is the foundation upon which everything else was built. The culture took a long time to figure out how to build it to a sustainable place where I felt like we were actually living the like mission and values that we had in a meaningful way, versus aspiring to them.
I got it. So, Erin, I'm also curious though, to your point, you were trying to really break outside the box for sure. And you were trying to do things that no one had ever done in business, truly creating a workplace where you were driving it with purpose, vision, values, creating a safe space. So, in and of itself, some could say that was a bold and unconventional decision. But was there a bold or an unconventional decision that you made along the way that actually became a game changer for you in Homeroom?
I think it's interesting. A lot of people think that the success of Homeroom is, based on like having great mac and cheese, which is true. But, honestly, we came out with a cookbook and have had many copycats since that came out. And none are even remotely as successful. And I think it's because, for one, it is that culture that we built. But two, I mean, I had worked in fine dining before I ever became a lawyer. And I kept thinking, a lot of these things as it relates to like great design, great service, there's nothing that needs to cost more about that. Like, why can't we bring just a more elevated aesthetic and a truly magical experience to people at the cost of a bowl of mac and cheese? And so I think that is something that we delivered on that none of our competitors have honestly even tried for.
Right.
So I think that was a big key component of our success.
All right. So, Erin, I really love your book, and I thought that it was funny, it was insightful, but I also felt like there were a lot of really significant leadership lessons in here too, whether you're a founder or you're, a startup or you're somebody that's even in business. And one of the areas that I thought was amazing was what you and the team did in terms of developing the color code of conduct. And that program has been picked up, not just because of Homeroom, but it's been picked up because of Homeroom around the United States and even globally. Can you talk just a little bit about the Color Code of Conduct program?
Yeah, sure. So, I am really proud and, definitely detail it in the book. We had a number of sort of systems that we developed over time to create this genuinely collaborative work culture. And it resulted in this top 1% financial performance, but also in turnover that is 10 times better than the industry average. So, our average tenure for our staff was 2.5 years, which in an industry where average is actually less than 90 days. Yeah. So, we had already systems that were created to allow for like transparency, collaboration, all of these things. So, unfortunately, I get all these emails coming in one day from a number of staff saying, hey, we're being, sexually harassed by customers. And it was pretty shocking to me because I thought we'd sort of created this, utopian work environment. But it turns out that this was still happening. And so, at a lot of places, if someone reports that, it would go to a leader who would try to figure out what to do, and then they would come up with something. And honestly, it wouldn't work because, how I think you come up with genuine solutions that are groundbreaking is to involve everyone impacted at all levels of an organization. So that's what we did. We got together, anyone who wanted to participate in solving this to try to solve it together. And, we tried a few things that didn't work, which was a little heartbreaking, but then we landed on this thing that did work, which we call the Color Code of Conduct. And it was just where we'd have, yellow, orange, red colors to, denote a certain type of behavior, and then an automatic action that a manager would take. And I can detail it for you, but the bottom line is it was incredibly effective. We came up with it as a way of just dealing with harassment, but it turned out it really reduced it dramatically. And so years later, I wrote about it in an op-ed in the Washington Post, which became very viral. I then testified in front of the EEOC about it. And it has been adopted, literally by bars and restaurants around the world. So we're just incredibly proud of it. But I think it shows you the power of, it's just a single restaurant. I think, to the people listening to this, I think you as a founder, if you create this incredible company culture, it doesn't matter how big your organization is, you can have really, really wide scale impact.
Oh my gosh, exactly. And I thought that was one of the great things. Obviously you can see I took so many notes, but I thought that was one of the great things that you wrote about in the book, though, was that you didn't have to be the biggest restaurant, but you were the restaurant that was able to figure out a solution to one of the biggest problems in our industry,
Totally.
which is just, kudos to you and the team. And I think that does speak to the culture that you were building where, I loved your 3 C's too, right? It's communication, collaboration and collective success. And a couple of ways that you built that, how were a couple of ways that you built that into your culture as you were growing the business?
Yeah. So, one big way is that we were an open book company, which means that we would share our financials with our staff and teach really basic financial literacy to people, because the truth is that business is just a game. And, you're trying to achieve lots of different goals, right? Like some of them are financial, but some of them, like we were really trying to be the best possible place to work. But you can't know if you're succeeding at that unless you tell everyone that that's your goal, unless they know how they're doing towards the goal. Like, are you making progress? Why and why not? And everyone needs to participate. So, I think that was a really key thing that we did. And so, we'd hold a meeting every week where leaders had to attend, but any staff was paid if they'd like to be there. And we would track these numbers together. Different people were responsible for different things. And it's really powerful when you get to actually learn about the place that you work and contribute to it in a meaningful way. And it's not just sort of a throwaway message on the wall that, collaboration and teamwork matters, but you see it in action.
No, it's so powerful. So Erin, it's such a great journey because you've got a successful concept. The lines are around the door. You're hitting financial success. You're building a culture based on purpose and values and, communication and collaboration. You've got the color code of conduct program going. I mean, everything is going your way. And then about 10 years into it, about 2021, right? You get the opportunity to actually sell Homeroom. So what went into your decision process with that?
I honestly, I didn't ever think I'd sell. I'd been approached many, many times over the years to sell. So it wasn't a new thing. I think that's the beauty is if you build something not to sell it, people will always want to buy it.
That's a good lesson. That's a good lesson.
But honestly, a number of things came together. I think I did not have a personal dream of like opening 100 homerooms. And, after a decade, I felt like I'd really achieved my original goals, which was this amazing restaurant, this wonderful culture. And I think I was just personally excited to like start looking at other opportunities, like having time to, write the book and things like that. There was just so many different things that sort of all like came together to make it sort of the right moment for me to sell. So now I sit on the board of Homeroom as well as the parent company that bought it, and it's been really interesting. I get to invest in and advise other founders, and that's really like a totally different seat to try to affect change in the industry.
Erin, I think that you hit on something really important. I work with a lot of founders, as you know, too, and they always want to know when their moment is to sell. Like, when's my moment going to be? And I think you just captured it so perfectly. The moment is when you're ready for the moment to be. As kind of ethereal as it sounds, but it really is what truly happens because so many people don't build it to sell, but then this moment comes and they're like, and it's the right deal. Clearly, it's the right deal. And then you're like, okay. And then it opens up all these other doors because your ability to write this book, I think, is going to help so many people on so many levels. So really a powerful transition from that perspective. When you think about founders and the work that you do with founders, the question I always ask people is, what do you think is one of the most overlooked traits a founder has that they need to be successful, though?
I would say it's being a great listener. I mean, I think that we place a lot of stock in trying to have answers. And, I think something I try to write about in the book is, I think something I'm really proud of was creating the kind of spaces where great ideas could bubble up, basically great spaces for listening. And because I think you as one person, no matter how brilliant or successful you are just not going to have most of the answers. But, like I had a team at one point of almost 100 people, that's a lot of minds that,
Right.
I can have working on a problem. And so I think a lot of people feel a lot of pressure that like their job is to have the answers to solve the problems. But I think a powerful trait is if you listen, people tend to know how to solve their own problems if you give them the space to do it.
That's really good. For you as a founder, what do you think has been one of your habits or one of your mindsets that's helped you be successful in your journey?
I think just persistence, because I think it's just tough, like, I mean, Homeroom had in many ways like a Cinderella story, right? Where maybe Cinderella is not quite the right, but, like, it was very hard. Like the entrepreneurial journey was hard, but, like I said, it had lines, down the block from the moment that we tried to start selling to customers. It wasn't like something that took years to become successful or whatever. But nonetheless, it was just so incredibly hard to get off the ground. And that was with, arguably the hardest thing, which is finding your customers.
Right.
It was sort of taken care of.
Right.
So, I think just the level of like your ability to just keep going in spite of just so many setbacks or obnoxious things or things that sort of, I think that is more important than anything else.
Erin, that is so fascinating that you said that because I felt like having the opportunity to work with you and then just woven through the entire book is that idea of persistence because one of the things that I really respect and admire about you is that even when it wasn't working, you never gave up on your vision. Mm-hmm. You kept insisting that I'm going to fulfill this vision. I'm going to build this concept in this workplace in alignment with the vision that I started it with. So what would be the advice you'd give a founder out there who's trying to do something out of the box, who's maybe trying to do something radically different, but like you, they've kind of hit some waves in it? What's the advice you'd give to them to keep going and keep persisting?
I would just say that it's always worth trying because sometimes people are like, oh, you can say this because Homeroom was successful. But honestly, I mean, I probably wouldn't be on a podcast with you about it, but I think I'd be saying the same thing even if Homeroom had failed. Like I feel like my only real failures in life were when I wasn't trying to do the things that I thought like were really motivating and really meant something to me. Like when I was being a lawyer, because I think, it's great to have a goal that means something to you and to try to make it happen. And I think even if it doesn't, you'll never regret having tried, but I think you'll deeply regret having not tried.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a good point. So Erin, I know you and I could talk for hours, especially if I started cracking open the book for every page I marked on it that I want to talk to you about, but we'll do that at a later date. But we are kind of coming into the end of our time together. So I have 5 quick questions for you. So here, you ready for this?
Yeah, ready.
All right. Number 1, what's your favorite Homeroom mac and cheese menu item?
The white cheddar.
Ooh, that's a good one. Mine is vegan mac. Okay. I just love that vegan mac, Erin. Okay. Number 2, what is one book every founder should read?
Oh, definitely the Mac and Cheese Millionaire. But other than my book, of course, I think I really love all of Ari Weinzweig's books on business are fabulous.
Okay, that's a great one. Thanks for that suggestion too. And then Erin, if you had to take one word to summarize your journey with Homeroom, what would you say that one word is?
We'll go with persistence. Yeah.
It's so true. All right. 4th question is this. If you had to you've shared a lot of great advice, how to build a culture, how to stay connected to purpose, your mission, how to build a concept that people love to come to and also work in. But of course, the Color Code of Conduct program too. But what would be one piece of advice that you'd give that founder out there that's listening to right now that's like, it's challenging times we're in, dynamic marketplaces. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them to continue on their path to break through?
I'd actually say to take a break because that is where I consistently got the most insights. Is I think it's very easy to become myopic, like where you can't see the bigger picture. And so particularly when things are stressful or going poorly, you're like, I gotta keep being here. But actually the only way out of that is to take a big step back and start doing something differently. And you can't have that perspective unless you take a break.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I always say the only way to get out of the hole is to start filling it.
Yeah.
And the only way to fill it is to take a break and take a look about how you're going to do it. So that's beautiful. Thank you, Erin. Final question. Where can people find out more about Homeroom? Where can they find out more about your book? And where can they find out more about you?
Sure. So they can just go to my website to connect to all sorts of stuff. It's, erinwade.co. I'm also on social media at the Erin Wade, and Homeroom is at Homeroom 510. And please follow, get in touch. Love to hear from people.
Fantastic. Erin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today and your insights, but also thank you so much for your founder journey to this date where you're out there truly trying to help founders and leaders transform our businesses so they can be better, safer, and places people love to work. So thank you for all the work you're doing on that. And thank you all for joining us today. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because then you'll be the first to know when we drop our next episode. But until then, keep pushing those boundaries of greatness and break through today.